is valuable. So thanks for joining us. We're spending some time with these guys for the team from Malwarebytes this morning, talking about the whole concept of automation in the end user fleet for those schools that have large fleets they're trying to manage. On the call today, we have Sanjay, who's Malwarebytes ANZ security engineer, and Sean, who's the ANZ EDU representative from Malwarebytes as well. So talked a bit about the concept already, but I just want to remind you that those guys that are on the call will actually get a free, fully functional Malwarebytes premium license. So thank you for attending. So that will be sent out after the call for you to use at home as you need to. But if you do have any questions as we walk through the process, probably just use the chat function initially. We will have a question and answer section at the end. We've been going for about 45-50 minutes, where Sanjay will spend some time running through a couple of scenarios. Sean will kick off with, or finish off with a bit of a summary. And those of you that have questions will try to answer along the way. So over to you, Sean, over to you, to Sanjay. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks for having us. So my name is Sanjay, and I'm the SC here, and I've got Sean Hayes, who's the regional sales manager. Okay. If you guys can mute yourself, that would be awesome. Love the Star Wars though. All right. Yeah. So. I'll be doing a good chunk of this demo, and then Sean will say a few words and tie this into the whole education side of things. Yeah, if you have any questions, pop them into the chat window and we'll get them answered later today. So here's the agenda. We'll go through some threat reports and trends. We'll talk a bit about endpoint detection and response. So ransomware is a big thing. I'm sure you're all aware of it. So how do you recover from that? It's always good to have an EDR solution before you get hit by ransomware. As far as a bit of diving deeper into that particular threat, sure, you've got ransomware, or you suspect you've got ransomware. Where did it come from? How many other machines did it infect? We've got this little feature called Flight Recorder, which we'll talk about as well. And this is not going to be death by PowerPoint, hopefully. I'll show you a few demos. In fact, most of them, I'll give you a bit of a demo so you're not bored listening to me talking about a PowerPoint. And then there's a layered protection demo. Unfortunately, that one is a collection of slides. But I thought I'd rather not do a live demo just in case things start to go crazy. I'll have to infect myself. And then there's the Nebula console, which is our cloud environment. If you're interested in deployment via Intune, if you're using it in your schools, we'll talk a bit about that. And then Sean will come in and talk about the site licensing. All right. Okay, so if you currently have an antivirus system, or if you don't, then I'd like to take you through this. So this is basically obviously a entire geographical view of the current attacks happening. Now the thing is, all of these attacks that are happening, they've got Malwarebytes endpoint installed on them, as well as at least one of these other AV providers. Okay, Microsoft obviously is the highest because they've got Defender built in. So that's that. And this is over a minute long. And we are getting a lot of attacks that, in this case, Microsoft is missing that we have picked up. Or in this case, the VAST is missing that we have picked up. And so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if you are interested, you could go on onto malwarebytes.com/remediation map. You can leave it running in the background, and you can do that now and then check on it at the end of the presentation, and you will see how many we are picking up that others might be missing out on. You can also hold your mouse over the little white dots there to see exactly what threat it is. and where it's located, and who the other vendor is. Sometimes you might find they have multiple vendors in there. Okay. This hopefully isn't news to you at the moment, because Toll has been in the news for a while now. In fact, they've been hit a second time around recently as well. DoorDash has been affected. A number of companies have been affected worldwide by various types of ransomware. These are the only ones I thought might be relevant, well, that I can fit into a slide. Maze ransomware, for example, that was discovered by our research team at Malwarebytes, and that has caused quite a lot of issues worldwide. 241 million yearly in Australia. Of course, that's the reported figure. The actual figure would be a lot higher. I like this little line over here: another day, another victim. I mean, this happens every day, every hour. So you want to protect yourself from it, okay? And if you see around what's happening in the world in the last hour, for example, so top 5 malware across all geographic regions in the last hour, there's this new malware, which we have currently termed malware generic and a random number. It's that new. Funnily enough, I looked at this exact page about 20 minutes ago, and HackTools KMS was the top, okay? And that's been the top for yesterday, in the last 7 days, in the last 30 days. This has really been doing some damage in the last 20 minutes, apparently, to become the top in the last hour. And you can filter this. This is an internal tool, by the way. So if you want more information, we're quite happy to show you a bit of that as well. So if you look at Australia, in the last hour, that particular Trojan is top. And that particular adware has been pretty big in the last 30 days as well, okay? And it's in the top 5 in the last hour as well. And you can go through and have a look at these and see infection maps and real-time detections. And this is something you can talk to me or Sean about if you're more interested. All right. So continuing on, the global industry trends you can see in 2018, the top 10 industries that were getting hit, education. I'll focus on education. Look at that. I mean, there's obviously a peak early on in 2018, and then there was a bit of a drop. Education, because schools and universities, for example, they obviously don't run through the year. They take a break, come back, and they got hit. Bam. Okay, and then there's a peak again later on. Not as high, but still a peak nonetheless. And then if you look at 2019, once again, education, you will find, is leading the pack here. Services, these are just general services like contractors and so on and so forth. They've also had a bit of a spike, retail having a bit of a spike there, but education is an interesting one, right? And I'm sure you know why that is. I don't have to tell you, because you've got people with BYOD, doing just about what they want, but still on your network. And then if you don't control that properly, then everyone else who are part of your network might actually get infected from these BYOD people. Okay, so there is a need, obviously, to control anyone who comes in, and obviously control the existing network as well. In the ANZ side of things, what have we seen year on year in the last 2 years? And once again, I'd like to say if we did this again next year, we'll see a different result. Okay, so we have seen from 2018 to 2019 that it's decreased by 14%. Which was good, but like I said, next year we're going to see this increase because everyone's working from home. Well, a lot of people are working from home, okay, because of the COVID situation, which means I don't think this will be a trend next year. In 2019, the top 5 threats on the consumer side, lots of adware. On the business side, still adware, but different kinds of adware, right? You've got Bitcoin miners. So if your home computer is running slow, then in 2019, Bitcoin miner was number 3, right? In the business side of things, I think a lot of people know not to click a certain thing, certain website, etc. So you'll find that miners, etc., they're not as big, but there's still a lot of adware happening around. And if you're sighing a bit of relief there, going, okay, you know what? It's only adware, it doesn't matter. Adware is almost a precursor to getting compromised later on down the track. So you definitely don't want adware in there, or any kind of wares, if you will. This is an interesting one, so I thought I'd put that in. If you see in 2019, Windows detections per endpoint. Windows had 5.8 detections per endpoint. Macs had, what's that, nearly double, right? 11 detections rather, per endpoint. Compare that to Mac in 2018, it was only 4.8. So between 2018 and 2019, that's more than doubled. So once again, these are not necessarily malware we're talking about on Macs, mostly along the lines of adware coming through. So what that tells us is it's almost like they're planning an attack, right? So if you see adware, there you go. Top Mac detections in 2019, adware was well over, nearly 30 million detections. Potentially unwanted programs. These are all potentially unwanted programs here. And then adware. So that sort of paints a picture as to what's going to come afterwards. While it's not necessarily malicious currently, they will become malicious by perhaps inviting imitate or other Trojans or other ransomware through these backdoors that they have currently planted. So this is something that should worry you if you are a Mac user. All right. Okay, and then global ransomware. You can see ransomware is still there. It's not going anywhere. You can see different threat actors have gone and come. So for example, Grand Crab, they used to be active up until mid-2019, and then after the June 2019, they kind of died off. Rumor has it they've made all the money that they could and no longer interested. Or that might be true, but secondly, the threat actors there, they have decided to focus on other types of ransomware. While they've shut up shop with the Grand Crab side of things, I think a lot of the research environments who research on ransomware, they think they've branded themselves as Ryuk, for example, okay, or something else that is a bit more malicious as well. If you've been infected by Sodinokibi or Ryuk or pretty much any ransomware, you know the drill. They basically encrypt your files, and there's really no going back unless you have a backup of every single file. And of course, if they affect your backups, then there's that's gone. Okay, offsite backups are probably a good idea, but they become costly. So it's you need to weigh up what you want to do with that. Do you want to spend all that money backing up your systems, including every single endpoint, especially in a university environment or a school environment where you've got maybe perhaps research in there that may or may not be part of the backup. Okay, so this is where that leads us straight into EDR. Okay, I'd like to talk about EDR, especially with things like ransomware, where you're thinking, well, should I back this up? Should I not back this up? I'm going to show you a quick video, and that's going to be that one there. It does not have sound. Okay, it does not have sound. I'm going to talk you through it. And this is typical of an environment where you don't know if you're protected or not. Everything looks good, so you've got your documents, you've got your music folders and files, pictures, videos. So everything looks good. We've got network connectivity, And then over here, we have got a ransomware that we wrote ourselves just to simulate this. Of course, I've tested this with real life ransomware and everything works exactly as it should, so rest assured. So I'm going to let this play and I'm going to kind of let it run for a while. And just keep an eye on all of these files. They're obviously readable XLSX file. There is a picture file, so you can see the thumbnails here. We've double-clicked on this ransomware, and you will find that it's all going to get encrypted. There you go. It's all encrypted, and they have left a little message in the background telling us exactly how to pay this ransom. Okay. So it is at this point you think, well, should I pay those people or not? Or do I have backups happening? All right. So let's move on. And at this point, I also want to let you know that we have actually got Malwarebytes installed on this system, but we've turned off all the protections just so we could see exactly how we will be affected by this. All right. We've turned off most of the detections, but we've turned on suspicious activity. So we get an email telling us high severity activities found, and it is the Accucom file that we just double clicked on. All right. So this is our cloud environment. I'll give you a cloud demo soon. We go under suspicious activity and we can see that it's triggered about 10 different rules. And this is our process graph that shows you exactly how things progressed. If you can see right at the bottom, the third circle shows us the Accucom, and then from there, lots of processes have evolved and have started because of that single process. Now, if you look at all the process ID up here, it shows us, okay, 10 rules across 4 items were triggered, and some of them were, okay, shadow copy has been deleted. That's the Windows shadow copy we're talking about. And then in this one, ransomware activity has been detected. So 17 files were affected over 4 directories, right? And then you can go click on each and individual buttons and you can see a bit more information through there. And it tells us a lot of things. For example, that particular process had a process ID of 3504. It has an MD5 hash of that, which you can throw into VirusTotal. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. It's just a great place for you to do some triage, do some research on whether this particular MD5 or the website or the file is malicious or not. Okay, and we also tell you what registry files have been set, values have been set, what files were written, and these are hyperlinks and we can click on them. Okay, so it tells us all of this information, which is all good. And then we discover that endpoint name is PC Finance 03, so we have a look at all of our other finance department PCs, and we see that they're all infected as well. So at this point, what you would want to do is you'd want to make sure that that they cannot spread any further to anywhere else. So we go ahead and do what we call endpoint isolation. We want to isolate these guys from, well, first of all, talking to anyone. So it's kind of like pulling the cable from these endpoints. So they cannot talk to anyone or anything except only malwarebytes.com, out.malwarebytes.com, and a few of our other services. That's all they can talk to. So they can't try and ping each other or ping Google. None of that will work if we enable network isolation. We can also isolate the process. Remember process ID 3504 and all the other processes. We can block them and carry on our merry way, or we can kick the user out while we work on it in the background. Or we can choose to do all of them. And in this case, that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay. And so that's what we've chosen to do. And we can see that all the locks pop up telling us they're all isolated. Okay. Now, all of that's good. Except we still have the little problem of all our files are encrypted. And there are two ways to handle this. We can pay the ransom and maybe we might get our files back, and it's not guaranteed that you'll get your files back. But if you've ever been hit by ransomware, then you know that they usually ask about 10, 15, 20,000 per machine. So if you've got 100 machines, that's about $2 million, and it's not guaranteed that you are going to get any of it back. So what you need, and this is the whole point of this demonstration, is that you need an EDR solution. That's endpoint detection and response. What an EDR does is it doesn't just give you pretty pictures on what's been happening. What it does is it takes a copy of all of the files that you see over here. So all of the files that you see that have been infected, or encrypted rather, and only the ones that have been encrypted, it takes a copy before they get encrypted, and it stores it locally on this machine. So if this file over here had not been encrypted, then we do not take a copy of that, okay? The way we do it is we follow a malicious process, and we make sure that it is not doing things like, creating 17 or touching 17 files in 4 folders and things like that. We've got a set of rules that we do not publish for obvious reasons. And we take a copy of things before they are deleted or encrypted, which saves space on your machine. So we're not backing up their entire file system, right? And then if you come into this scenario here, and you find yourself infected or encrypted, you can click on the button that says remediate this, right? So we go and remediate it, which basically says, okay, undo. Essentially what we're saying is undo everything that this thing has done. And first of all, you'll find that network isolation kicks in, so they can't ping anywhere. We will find that we will go and clean up all the mess that was done by Accucom, and then we'll undo and we'll bring back the files that were encrypted, okay? So what you've done is you haven't actually paid the ransomware threat actors. You haven't necessarily had to back up all these files. I mean, we're showing you all these pictures and stuff. People don't generally back up their pictures, right? And a lot of local files, like if you're doing research, etc. Yeah, you might back up once a week, hopefully once a day. But if you've done a lot of work and you haven't had a chance to back them up yet, they're gone, they're encrypted, unless you have an EDR solution like this, okay? Okay, and then now that they're clean, we can remove the endpoint isolation, and I'm just gonna skip ahead through here. It's always good to do a restart. Once you do a restart, because the way Microsoft is, for example, the background was still the ransomware background until you do a restart, and it's always good to do a restart after a ransomware attack once it has been cleaned, okay? So that is the power of an EDR solution. You need to have the EDR installed on your system before you get encrypted, rather than after. If it's after, well, you're not going to get much done. Okay. Once again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and Pradeep, Sean, or I will get back to you shortly. Okay, so what you saw, and this is our cloud environment. I'll show you around the cloud environment in a second. Sorry, later on. So you saw this in the video, and it's all pretty and everything. So it shows you what the actual threats are, and shows you a pretty graph, which you can click all the way through, and so on and so forth. That's great. What I wanted to talk about is a bit more of a triage that you can do, okay? A bit more of a threat hunt. Flight recorder search is something we have enabled in our cloud environment. So you can, for example, let me search chrome.exe. Sorry if I can spell. it gives us information on if that was in the last 24 hours, if that has ever been an occurrence, and if so, where, what, why, and so on and so forth. So you can do a lot of triaging from there. Okay. Now let's pick a real one. Let me go and get the MD5 of, let's say that one. Let me copy that. Let me go to flight recorder. Paste that in. Okay. So what this tells us is, okay, that's the endpoint that was affected by this. And if you had multiple endpoints, this will show you, okay, these endpoints, time first seen, on which endpoint was it first seen. And in this case, only this endpoint has been seen by this. Well, only that endpoint has seen this particular process that we have deemed to be suspicious. If you see many of those in there, then you can go around and clean them up or isolate them. You can triage this a lot better. Okay, so there were 7 processes and 2 file systems were affected by this. We did find this as suspicious. So if you click on it, it brings up the flight recorder information. So we even have a little link to virus total. So if we click on that, it opens up once again virus total. So in this case, this is good, right? Because this particular item has not been found by virus total. We have deemed it to be suspicious, but no one else in virus total knows about it. If you haven't played with virus total before, I strongly recommend that you do. Let me search for, I'm not sure if Ryuk would be there, but it basically says, okay, Ryuk is a threat, tells you it's a ransomware. Not only that, it also tells you, oh, wow, 45 out of 70 AV vendors. So virus total is using 70 different engines. So the engines are from Kaspersky, McAfee, Malwarebytes is up there somewhere. Okay. So 45 of them detected it out of the 70 that are available. Okay. But we've obviously detected and blocked it. So you can check all of these, and it's a good way to indicate that, okay, we found something that some of the other vendors have not. And then if you want to look at the process path, it brings up that pretty process graph from earlier on. Okay, it shows you how things progressed, and you can click each of the way through and see what the command line executed was, what command was executed, what path, what process ID, so on and so forth. Okay. So the flight recorder search is a very powerful tool, is a very useful tool to see if something suspicious has shown up in other machines, and if they did, when did they show up? And then you can go and do a bit more of a triage around that. Okay. So how do we do this? How does our engine work? We use multiple layers of protection. Web protection is your very first layer. So if you were to click on a malicious link on an email and it takes you to a website, we're going to block that website. So what it's going to look like is, for example, if I go to iptest.malwarebytes.com, that little thing pops up. This is blocked by us. I mean, it's a safe site, but we've blocked it. You can do this on your systems and then see if iptest.malwarebytes.com is allowed. If it's allowed, then you probably need a better AV system. Okay. So that's the first layer of protection that stops command and control traffic from happening. So if you do have adware, all those examples of Macs that I showed you with adware and spyware and all that, that'll block the CNC traffic from going through. If we fail on that, then we'll look at application hardening, and I'll show you all of these in action in a second. If we fail that, we go to the next layer. If we fail that, go to the next layer, and so on and so forth, right? Generally, we will be blocking it in all of these top layers, so it generally doesn't have to go through all of these layers. But if it does happen, and we fail to block it at the ransomware mitigation, then this is where the EDR side of things starts. Okay. So this is where we start. We go, right, we've actually let it through here. So we're going to monitor it very closely. And if it starts trying to access a file, for whatever reason, we're going to take a copy of it, store it locally on the endpoint, and then let this malicious process or suspicious process have it. And then we can obviously do isolation, and then we can do rollback as well. As you see, the rollback is getting your encrypted file deleted and rolling back to the clean file that we had from before. Linking engine remediation. As you can see from here, each one of these processes, it's linked to many artifacts. Okay, so just deleting this is not good enough. We need to remediate this. We need to remediate this if they are deemed to be malicious. Okay, so it basically links all of these together and says these are all malicious. So if you choose to remediate this, then we're going to clean everything that's affected by this as well. You'll be surprised to know that not a lot of vendors actually do that. So make sure that every bit is cleared along the way. So all of these layers, let's see them in action. And this is where I said, look, I'm going to run through slides rather than do a live demo of it, because as you saw, the previous demo took about 4 minutes. So I'm just going to talk through the slides. So in this case, we have got cafe.com. That's exciting. I'm going to double click on this. Looks like a nice little icon over there. People will just go and click on it. And then it turns out, hey, yeah, looks pretty normal. So far, so good, except it is actually ransomware. So what we've done as per part of this demo is we have gone and turned off all of these layers of protections. Actually, we're going to turn it off one by one, okay, just to demonstrate why you need a layered approach. So when we double clicked on it, it comes up and says website's blocked. Great, that's it. Okay, I'm now protected. Remember, website blocking, that's the very first layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my cloud environment, go under policies, and I can turn off each layer one by one. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to turn off web protection, and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to double click on it again. And now it says not web protection, not website blocked, but it says exploit has been blocked. So in this particular case, Internet Explorer application hardening, that's the layer that's protecting it. And the technique is anti-exploit fingerprinting. Okay, so obviously website blocking didn't happen here because we turned that off. So what are we going to do? We are going to turn off exploit protection as well. And we can click on applications and advanced settings, and we can do a bit more on this. So we are, in this case, going to turn off anti-exploit fingerprint attempts. So you can get to that particular page by clicking on advanced settings. We turn it off, and now we double click on that icon again on the desktop, and this time it says exploit has been blocked. Okay, and the protection layer is still application hardening, but in this case, it's a VB script that's been blocked. And once again, we turn off the entire exploit layer protection rather than just the one-off protection in there. And then now we double click on it, and we see real-time protection has blocked it. It's malware, and it's particularly that one. So what do? We go and turn off malware protection, and now we double click on the icon again, and we see ransomware. So we recognize it as ransomware, so we're not going to block that ransomware. Okay. We turn off behavior protection. Don't do this. I mean, this is for demonstration purposes only. Obviously, you would never do something like this unless you really want to get infected. So now we double click on it. What do we expect? Yeah, it finally runs because there is nothing stopping it. And you get everything encrypted. and you get a little note saying how to actually pay to get it back. Okay. So yeah, once again, for demonstration purposes only, you would never actually do this. So you see why you need the layered approach, right? Generally, we say no one vendor can block all 100% of the traffic. But with a layered approach, you will find that, and with the EDR, with the rollback side of things, with just Malwarebytes, if you only had Malwarebytes in there and you had the EDR capabilities, even if you did get ransomware attacked and you got encrypted, you're able to roll it all back. Okay. So you've seen this a few times already. This is Nebula. This is our cloud environment. If you've never used this before, this is what you would use to centrally manage your hundreds or thousands of endpoints. In this case, we've got about over 1,000 licenses. This is a demo account, so you'll see that this is quite unhealthy because we tend to infect ourselves quite often. It shows you a quick overview of detections clean, detections by type, endpoint by OS. So yeah, we support servers, we support Macs, Windows, obviously Linux nowadays. Yeah. Detections per day, suspicious activities per day. Like I said, we tend to infect ourselves a lot, so don't be alarmed. And then top 10 endpoints with detections, and top 10 activity detection rules and malware. So it basically gives you a lot of, top 10s in there. So that's a good thing to keep an eye on. You can have a look at the endpoints and see what's been happening. So if I go into that, for example, it gives you a bit of information about that particular asset. So what MAC address, what IP address. You can turn off this sharing if you don't want to. Has this had any suspicious activity? No, so that's good. What about detections? No, that's a clean machine. Scan history. Okay, that's probably why he hasn't been scanning. So Alan hasn't been doing his job. Cool. And then what software they've got installed, what updates have they been getting, their Windows 10 updates, have they been getting their Office updates, what startup programs they've got, and so on and so forth. Once again, you can turn that information off if you don't want to share it. And you can see your cumulative all your detections, and then you can filter by endpoint, and you can filter by any one of these as you see fit. Suspicious activity, you've already had a look at in the video. Flight recorder, you've had a look at. Reports, downloads, okay. Download, yeah, you can distribute your download at MSI, which contains all of your cloud information anyway, all of your account information. And you can configure your policies and your schedules, all from here. So it's very simple. We've made sure things are simple. You can pick it up in literally half an hour, okay? Do you want users to be able to do a threat scan and be able to see the agent sitting on there? You can control all of that from here. You can require tamper protection. So if I try to uninstall it as a user, I'd be asked for a password. These are the scan options that you have seen earlier on. Okay. Exclusions. You can create different groups. Okay. Especially if you're a school, you might want to have a class of 2020, class of 2019, for example. So what that means is when a class graduates, you can select a group. You can go under here, go to a group, for example. Let's say that's class of 2020. So you can click on all of them, and then you can hit delete, and you get your licenses back. Okay, because you can't trust the students to delete that from their endpoint, but you still want your licenses back. I'm happy to give you a closer demo if you want to, but I've just been reminded I've got only a few minutes. I'll quickly talk about deployment via Intune. This is all assuming that you've got Intune up and running, Microsoft Intune up and running. You can upload Malwarebytes, the agent that you get from. So what you would do first is you download the MSI, fit for Windows, all of those Windows versions, or Windows XP, or Windows Server, and then figure out which one of the groups you want to add it to. So is it group graduation 2020, 2019, Sanjay, whatever? Figure that out first. And then you can click on this link and it tells you, gives you a specific group ID that you can get from here, okay? Why that is important is if you go here and you upload the MSI into Intune, and in this case, we've specifically said for the class of 2020, we've uploaded that on there. And if you go in here, it actually tells you what group ID to pop in there. Okay, so these are the apps that we have decided to deploy. And we have said they are to be deployed into this specific group. So obviously, if you go and edit the app, you can add what command line information to put in there. So what that means is when people join, when endpoints join via Intune and they've been managed through there, they will be able to automatically, or these applications will be automatically downloaded, and they will be put into the appropriate groups, which means they can download and inherit the appropriate policies for that group. Okay. And then from there, once they're in the group, you can then offer them exclusion. So you can say, okay, you know what, I don't want to scan that, I don't want to scan that, I don't want to scan that. So these are all whitelisted. You can also do scheduled scans and so on based on the group. Okay, so you can say daily scan, but I only wanted to apply it to group Sanjay. So all of this can be controlled from here and inherited through this grouping information. All right. Right. So okay. So that's the command line information in there. Give it a bit of a description. What you want to do is don't check app version when installing, because we will manage all of this information from our Nebula Cloud Cloud Console. So untick that, save it, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. The actual demo of this, if you're interested, we can do one for you as well. So feel free to ask me, Sean or Pradeep on that one as well. So that's it from me. Once again, questions, pop them into the chat window or ask me later on. But for now, it's up to Sean. Sean, do you want to talk, or do you want to share screen, or what would you like to do?
Great. Yeah, if you could stop sharing, that would be great, Sanjay. And I'll just quickly do a switch over here. All right, so I'm very quickly just going to jump over to the commercial offering on what we do with education. I will just confirm, can someone just let me know if we've got the PowerPoint up on the screen?
Yep, all good, John.
Perfect, okay. So look, we understand you guys have enough of a headache to manage Adobe and Microsoft, so we've tried to come up with an offering that it really simplifies that and simplifies the time it takes to manage your endpoint protection across the school. And I'm just going to do a couple of quick slides on that. So what we see is some of the important outcomes when we actually talk to schools on that is that you're looking for a solution that is going to cover the entire campus. So that could be BYOD, labs, staff, server fleet. This is an all-encompassing solution that offers protection across all those different platforms. A few different deployment options. So we're happy to have a chat to you around what we do with BYOD. If you've got Intune, if you've got Jamf or other software management tools in place, we integrate with most of them. It is a very lightweight, pre-configured package to drop out, and very easy to deploy. I mean, we work with Catherine College down in Victoria, and we went out for a meeting with them. They're out in Bendigo, and it was about a 2-hour drive to get back to Melbourne. And by the time we got back, they deployed to most of the student fleet. So it's very simple, easy, flexible deployment with the site license. It actually allows you to get a whole lot more accurate when it comes to budget planning. It's a fixed cost based on the number of device users, and it's essentially uncapped within that term, right? So you can have users that have one or more devices that you can protect with the site license. And if you want to look at adding on protection for those devices, there's no additional add-on on our end. And then I guess the last part of it is it's a single solution. We covered the different layers of proactive protection in here. Where we really stand apart from other endpoint security providers is our ability to not just proactively protect, but if something does get through, and there is an acknowledgement around resilience and response these days, it's a solution that is also going to help you detect it, remediate it, respond and contain it in a very short period, and keep the lights on for the school, minimize any sort of disruptions to classroom learning. That's really the focus of the technology. What's actually included in the site license? So I guess 4 central offerings. So it includes our automated threat hunting remediation scanner tool, Malwarebytes incident response, Malwarebytes endpoint protection. So that's the proactive stopping layers. You can, if you want to, look to bundle it with EDR. So we acknowledge that EDR it's a whole really other separate platform or use case and capability that schools are now looking at. Traditionally in the past, it's been something reserved for the larger end of town, but this is really a commoditized solution, and it's something that we believe that everyone should have the access to. And with that, you can bundle that based on, I guess, the class of users that you have across the school. So we see, for example, some schools looking at a site license for their entire student population, but then with the site license, also adding on EDR for their more critical users or their staff fleet as well, and potentially their servers as well in under that. And then the last part of it is a Malwarebytes toolset. So that's allowing you some diagnostic and repair utilities for the help desk team, helping them deal with the tickets daily as they arise, and really just helping them stay productive. So that's a bit of a broad overview on that. I don't want to drill too much into the commercial offering today. If there is interest in exploring it further, whether you want to bundle it on top of the existing protection that you have in place, or if you're looking at doing an endpoint security refresh and review, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to talk through more of the technology that we've discussed today, and also the commercial offering on how this site license might be a fit for you. I know a lot of schools are looking at Microsoft. We've got some bundling options around the existing Microsoft Defender and Microsoft ATP solution that might be more suitable as well. So a number of different options is what I'm really pointing to, but just very quickly from me on that high level overview of the education site license. So I want to say a massive thank you on behalf of Sanjay and myself for doing that. And I'll hand it back over to Graham, I guess, wrap it up.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time this morning. We're right on time. 50 minutes has just ticked over. If, as Sean's already highlighted, if you do have any further inquiries or interest in discovering some more information about commercials around this solution, make sure you reach out to us at Accucom, and obviously the guys at Malwarebytes will assist us to develop that solution for you. But unless there's any further questions now, which doesn't appear to be coming through in the chat, so we'll wrap that up. And the session has been recorded, so it will be edited and put up on our YouTube channel sometime over the next couple of days as well. So if you do want to review some of the topics that we've covered off, then that'll be there for you. But thanks for your time today, and speak soon. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Bye.